السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أهلا بيكم في قناة التين والزيتون. وزي ما شايفين قدامنا النهاردة السيت اب مختلف. يعني أنا قبل كده كنت بعمل المقدمة، وبعد كده الجيست هو اللي بيقول لنا الحاجات النصايح للشباب والبنات الصغيرين. النهاردة الطريقة مختلفة، وده شكرا لطارق فرحات اللي هو معانا النهاردة. أنا أعرف طارق من سنة 2010. أنا كنت ابتديت في شركة بي ان جي، والحظ خدني لسنسناتي في أمريكا. ده كان سنة 2010، وكنت قاعد مع اللي هو المدير التنفيذي لبروكتر اند جامبل، وبسأله مين هم القيادة في المناطق المختلفة. فلقيته بيقول لي في طارق فرحات، ده هو البريزيدنت بتاع لاتين أمريكا. انت ما تعرفوش؟ قلت له والله لا، ما اعرفش طارق لسه. فقال لي ده مصري، وهو من الامثله الناجحه جدا عندنا في شركه بي ان جي، وان هو قائد المنطقه بتاعه امريكا اللاتينيه. فطارق انا كلمت طارق من حوالي اسبوع او حاجه، قلت له على فكره القناه، وان هي بتحاول تقدم نصايح للشباب والشابات الصغيرين في المنطقه بتاعتنا بامثله ناجحه جدا، امثله مصريه وعربيه. هو ما ترددش خالص، وعشان الكرياتيفيتي بتاع طارق قال لي بص احنا نعملها مع بعض احسن ما انت تعمل مقدمه وان انا اعمل الفيديو سيبريتلي يعني. فطارق متشكر جدا جدا انك قبلت ده، ومتشكر على الفكره الرائعه. ان شاء الله تبقى انجح ان احنا نبقى مع بعض. اديك بقى الكلمه تقول لنا خطواتك الناجحه في البيزنس، وازاي قدرت توصل للمنصب ده في بي ان جي. وانا عارف ان بعديها انت كملت بقيت سي او بتاعت شركات كتيره، فاديك بقى الكلمه تقول لنا ايه هي الخطوات الناجحه بتاعتك.
شكرا جدا يا هيثم، و thank you so much for the invitation، وان انت تديني الفرصه ان انا to share a little bit of experience. I hope it's helpful, or at least some of it would be helpful for people. I started basically like most of people in Egypt who graduate from university. You know, you graduate and you don't know basically where life is gonna take you. So you think ان في شركات كبيرة في مصر, and you go and knock the doors, and then you realize that actually there is the شركات they operate outside Egypt as well. You stay in this search for a while until you know exactly what you're looking for or what suits you. And I graduated from AUC in 86, and alumni office helped me a lot actually figure this out. Said, yeah, there are companies that are investing in Egypt, and also they can take you outside Egypt. Interviewed with few companies, and I found myself that I liked Procter & Gamble. And I فاكر لما رحت جم عملوا presentation في مصر, when they showed the advertising of Ariel, how Ariel cleans much better than competition. So I like this whole thing of how the company prides its brand with superiority. It was aggressive, it's young. So I applied, and I started working in Saudi Arabia. So I worked for P&G for 5 years in Saudi Arabia. And then in the middle of the way, the company said, would like to take you on a broadening assignment outside in Europe. I worked in Switzerland, then I worked in France, then I worked in Germany. And I found myself in Brazil. And then after Brazil, I found myself in Venezuela. And then after Venezuela, I came back in Brazil. And along the way, you meet, very, very smart people. You go to places that you have never seen before, you have never dreamt to visit or do business. Then I went to Panama. I was the head of Latin America and the cash and carry chain around the world. So this was my journey in P&G. And as I was in P&G, I joined boards. I joined the board of JBS, which is a very large protein company. It's a Brazilian company. I was a director of the board, and then I ended up becoming the chairman of the board after taking an executive role, and I left P&G. And I took some board positions in different companies. WPP was one of them. Havaianas, Havaianas, the sandals. It's a group called Alpargatas. I was also on the board there. Pilgrim's Pride in the US, and many other companies. And basically, this is what I do today. I serve on few boards, and I invest in startups in different places. So I would say, looking back, I've been very, very fortunate.
Very good, excellent. انت بتتكلم كام لغة يا طارق؟ عشان برازيل اكيد
Well,
برتغيز ولا؟
yes, I speak Portuguese. Like عربي وإنجليزي Portuguese. The French I learned in school, I already forgot it, so I'm like really very shallow in French. But I would say Arabic, English, and Portuguese, yes.
ثلاثة في اوكي اكسلنت. طيب لو رجعت ورا كده خلال الكارير الناجح جدا ده، لو حد بيقول طارق نجح وصل للمناصب دي ما شاء الله، ايه الاسباب تفتكر؟ ايه اسباب النجاح؟
I tell you, one thing I learned is that you have to learn. If there is one thing I can share, it's really you have to have the capacity to learn, and that's a discipline, because you don't know what you don't know. So the only way to acquire knowledge is if you really go after acquiring the knowledge, and then you take this knowledge and transform it into skills that help you on the job. And I always believe that nobody's gonna pick up the phone and call me and say, "Hey, Tarek, I want to give you thousands of dollars." I don't remember the last time that this happened, because it never happened. So you earn your way. So you basically get paid because of what you contribute. And your contribution is a function of what you learn mixed with your skills. And this is what you give to the job. And that's why people pay you and trust you with their business and gives you opportunity to grow and give you more responsibility. So if there is one thing, and there are many things, but if I have to choose one thing that I have always been keen to be disciplined about is the capacity to learn.
اوكي تمام. الشباب الصغيرين والشابات الصغيرين يعني عايزين maybe نديهم زيادة على التعلم بطريقة ايه؟ لان في ناس كتيرة بتتعلم اكاديميكال بس ممكن يكونوا بيخبطوا في ان هو مش قادر ينفذ فور اكزامبل، او ان هو مش قادر ازاي يستغل تعليمه ده في حاجة مفيدة تقدر الناس تكلمه زي انت بتقول، تقول له تعالى عشان اديك thousands of dollars.
Throughout the decades I've been in companies, I try to summarize a few things that I have seen in people who are successful. People that I have worked with, people that I have interacted with, and different parts of the world and different business environments. And I kind of call them capacities that you would have to have to progress. أول حاجة capacity to learn. So you have to be able to learn. You have to be able to ask questions. So when you go into a new environment, you have to understand what is the culture of that environment. What do they value? How do they do their work? And there is no stupid question. You have to be confident enough to ask. And sometimes I feel that people they feel shy asking, so they assume they know. They believe that if they ask, so people will think that they don't know, and that devalues them. It's actually the other way around. If you show genuine curiosity and ask questions, even if the questions are really basic, it makes you stronger, makes you more self-confident, and portrays an image of somebody who is keen to learn. Imagine, you have a coffee shop and you hire somebody. If the guy comes in, it's like, Haitham, I know, يعني انت مش محتاج تقول لي حاجه. انت هتبص له كده هشوف هيغلط امتى. But if he comes and says, okay, طب هعمل دي ازاي وهعمل دي ازاي وهعمل دي ازاي, it projects differently about his personality. You would connect more with him because you say, well, this guy really wants to learn. Okay. So that's capacity number one. The second capacity, which I have seen, is the capacity to analyze. You have to be able to be a truth seeker. I see a lot of people, they fall in the trap of trying to prove themselves right. So they have a hypothesis that is not based on facts. It's based on what they want things to happen. And they go and chase whatever supports that hypothesis.
Mm.
And then you end up with, bad decisions. So people have to be real truth seekers. You have to have really cold head when you analyze, and you have to be good in analyzing. It's like when you go to the doctor. لو رحت للدكتور وقال لك انت شكلك كويس ده زي الحصان. Yeah, you're gonna feel happy for just a few minutes, and I would feel more comfortable لو الدكتور قال لي اوكي انا عايز البلاد تيست ده وعايز اقيس لك الضغط وعايز قبل ما اقول لك في ايه. It's the same thing in business. You want to make sure you understand what the business situation is, what the market is, whatever you're looking for. You have to be open-minded, and you have to be a truth seeker, and then let your conclusion live in ambiguity. You have to be able to enjoy living in ambiguity until you come to a good conclusion.
Mm.
And I have learned that decisions can go three ways. There is a good decision, there is a wrong decision, and there is a bad decision. So good decision is, basically the outcome is consistent with what you wanted the decision to do.
Mm.
So you do your homework, you make a decision, and the outcome is consistent. So that's basically what everybody wants. And then there is bad decision and wrong decision. Wrong decision, in my view, is you did the homework, you looked for the numbers, you looked for the truth, you consulted the right people, you made the decision, but the outcome was not to your satisfaction because of things that happened that were outside your control. But
you did your homework.
Did your homework. It just didn't turn out the way you wanted. The market turned differently. There is a black swan event. So, but there is bad decision. And bad decision is often we do to ourselves. We don't do the homework.
Yeah.
So we use analogies, we use specific situation, we try to generalize it. زي واحد يقول لك مثلا يا أخي ده في واحد أنا أعرف فلان ده عنده 100 سنة وبيشرب سجاير. It doesn't make سجاير healthy. And this is dangerous. Even if you're lucky and get it right one time, but this whole process of building to a decision without doing the homework, in a cold head, looking for the truth, that becomes actually quite bad. So we want to make good decisions. So you have to have the capacity to analyze. The third capacity that I see successful people have is the capacity to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
When I joined P&G, it's a different environment than the one I had before joining P&G. Procter & Gamble is a very centralized company. It values its brands. The company likes to make its brands global. It values a lot of technology. It's a culture that has checks and balances. It's a stewardship culture. It's a culture that values collaboration. So you will have to adapt. You will have to adapt to that. I tell this to the new generations. I don't want people to filter themselves too much to the job, because you cannot leave Haitham home and become another person. But also, one of the worst advice that people can give you is be yourself 100%, because you have to do a little bit of filtering to adapt to the job, but it has to be natural. You have to like it. You work in several countries with different companies. You have to like the place you're going to go to. So you have to do your effort to adapt. I have lived and worked in many countries, whether in the Middle East, in Europe, or Latin America. I have to respect the culture I'm going to. So there are some countries that they love football, and when there is a match, you will have to respect the fact that people are passionate about it. There are some countries this really doesn't matter. There's some countries where you have to stop for the prayer. You have to adapt yourself. to that. You're not going to change cultures. You just have to, adapt. The fourth capacity is the capacity to operate. You cannot do business unless you are a very disciplined operator. If you're not a very disciplined operator, you're going to make mistakes. And people are not going to trust you with things. So you have to be able to be a good executor. I hear a lot people like that, and I'm a big picture guy. This doesn't make sense. In order to be a good big picture guy, you have to be really into the details. Otherwise, your knowledge is very shallow, and whatever opinion you give is not founded on the reality of what the business is based on. So in my case, for example, I realized that P&G the business happens on the shelf. So I made it a point all the time throughout my career. If I'm near a supermarket, I'm just going to stop and watch and ask consumers, and that gives me a lot of satisfaction because I know how it works. I made some wrong decisions, and I also made some bad decisions. But the good decisions usually I made were based on the fact that I know what's happening in the store. I know what's happening in the homes. I know whether our price is too high or too low, because I have seen this on the shelf and I've seen how consumers react to that. So I like very much people who are meticulous in their details. They know what is going on. They are not detached from the micro things that are happening in the business. So that helps them operate, and that helps them execute with excellence. The last is the capacity to lead. Whether you are, the boss of many people, or whether you're not the boss of anybody, you lead people. And lead means, collaborate. You have to have good interpersonal skills. One of the things that I see as actually a weakness is that a lot of people, they want to talk, they don't want to listen. They want to talk more than they listen. And listening is a discipline. You have to hear, you have to not interrupt, you have to understand what the other person is trying to say. You have to ask questions to make sure you're fully engaged in what's going on. And that gives you the ability to lead, because when people feel that you're listening to them, you understand their point of view, they will also understand your point of view. And most organizations are complex. If your business is, you tell somebody to do things, and okay, well, that's not very difficult, but that's also not a big business, or that this doesn't provide a lot of challenges. So the business environment we live in has a lot of people who are specialized in different things, and you have to work with a lot of people from functions that are far from your expertise, and you have to be able to communicate and lead those people. So again, just my view, people who have been, that I've seen grow successfully, irrespective of the country, irrespective of the function, they have those capacities to learn, to analyze, to adapt, to operate, and to lead.
Honestly great يا طارق. هايل. انا اول مره اسمع ال 5 C's موديل ده. I heard about many. كويس ان انت حضرتهم based on a practical experience, لان في منهم بصراحه are spot on. انا I'm reading a book today اسمه Think Fast and Slow. I'm sure maybe you heard about it. هو بيتكلم على حاجه اسمها System 1 و System 2. ان our decision most of the time بيبقى very impulsive, not data based. It's just gut feeling and so on, and we move on. And the capacity to analyze, your second one is fantastic. It's telling us to step back, get the data, analyze, don't have these biases that can lead you to bad decision. Great. انت طارق، حاجة تانية، الصفات اللي في الناس الناجحة دي، انت شايف ان الصفات دي تتغير لو انا بعمل البيزنس بتاعي عن ان انا شغال في شركة مالتي ناشونال؟ هل في حاجات معينة محتاجة تتغير غير ال 5 C's اللي انت شيرد معانا؟
I think you have to have basic skills to run business or to work in corporation. It's all the same thing. If you're in a company and you want to hire people, you want somebody who really owns the business, has a feeling of ownership for the business. So I think whether you run your own business or you work in a corporation, you need these things. You need to operate well. You need to operate well in a complex structure. You need to operate well by yourself. You need to analyze by yourself and in a structure. If you have your own business and you don't adapt to the culture even of the neighborhood, you're not going to have a good business. So it all, in my view, it works, whether it's your own business or working in a company. Now, when you work in a company, you have certain responsibilities, and when you work on your own business, it's a different set of responsibilities. So if this business is yours 100%, you created it, I don't know whether it's from your own money or you borrowed money, it's a set of responsibilities. When you work in a company, they give you everything, and they look at you to contribute in what they hired you for. So you have a certain scope that you have to contribute in. So, but in general terms, these are very similar things.
Some people they work for private companies أو family owned versus الجاينتس اللي هم زي P&G or Danone or some. في أي skills زيادة بتحتاجها الشغل في الفاميلي business أو small ones?
Yeah. I mean, family businesses have their own challenges. It's usually working for somebody who created that business or inherited from the family. The level of ownership that those people they have for their business, they created that. So probably they want you to do things in a certain way, and I have seen that in most cases, depending on the job you're in, you have to get along with the founder of the business to understand exactly why he hired you, where he wants to take that business. Different than very large multinationals, where your role and your scope is defined by a job description that probably has been designed by HR and by line management. So it's a different thing. Everybody there owns the business, whether it's one share or 100,000 shares. It's a different dynamic than when you work for somebody who says, "Okay, that's my business. I have created it," whether it's a fintech startup or whether it's a food company, and then the dynamic and the relationship is different. So I have worked in most of my life in publicly traded company, but also I have worked in a company that was controlled by a family, and I had great experiences in both. JBS, for example, great company, has a worldwide footprint, family controlled, but the family wanted to run it as a true multinational company that operates in Australia, operates in the US, operates in Europe, the Middle East, and so on. So it felt like a publicly 100% publicly traded company, because it's also publicly traded partly, but it is controlled by the family. Now, I have not had experiences working for privately owned business. I have experience sitting on board of privately owned businesses or investing in privately owned businesses, and that's why I'm telling you that the dynamic can be quite different. You have to be very well aligned with the founder of the business.
بيرفكت. طب طارق، انت قلت لنا الحاجات اللي انت شفتها صفات في الاشخاص الناجحين اللي هم الفايف سيز اللي انت قلتهم. هل في صفات للشركات الناجحه اللي هي بتكمل مئات السنين؟ غير الشركات اللي بنشوفها every 3 years بتلاقي حاجه failure وما بتكملش. ايه ال few things that differentiate between these two types of companies?
I think, if you look back at, and probably there are like thousands of research that correlates, company success with time and so on. And you see that companies that have innovation plans tend to last longer. By innovation plan, I say aggressive innovation plan that has new ways of going to the market involved. So, we worked in P&G, so we're familiar with that all the time. All the brands of P&G, innovate. You look at companies like Coke or Pepsi, all the time innovating in the way they go to the market, the businesses that they acquire, because people's taste and health consciousness are changing. So that's innovation. Look at technology companies. Look at Apple. How Apple evolved from one or two products to an ecosystem, and so on. Innovation is a huge, and I would say it's probably the biggest driver. The other thing is, I think, governance and compliance. I mean, a lot of companies, just fall off the cliff when they are not well governed. There is a structure, there is a building. Let's say compliance and governance is really the base of that pyramid, because you can put the best brands, the best technology, you can hire the best people. If you have compliance problems, everything is just gonna collapse and fall apart. So I would say these two are fundamentals. I would also say that corporate name and brand names. So if you look at balance sheets of many companies, there's this huge goodwill of what the company is worth because of its not only patents and assets, but also intangible assets in terms of the brands. We used to hear this a lot in P&G, that if you sell the company for the plants it's owned and for the material it has, it's a fraction of when you sell it for the value of the brands. So I would say innovation and governance and corporate name and brands, these are things that take companies through decades. And those happens because of the quality of leadership and the quality of management that you have. That's why it's so fundamentally important when you hire somebody. You got to make absolutely sure you're hiring somebody that is gonna build and he's gonna acquire skills, because one person can cause a disaster. And without naming names, you have seen many companies have a quality issue. They end up in big reputation problems, do damage to the consumers. Sometimes they pay billions of dollars of fine. And I must say that most of those cases are not intended. I mean, nobody goes to the work and says, "Oh, I'm going to harm consumers, and that's why, and this is how I'm going to make money." That's not the thing. It's just something that went wrong along the way that led to that.
Okay. Very, very interesting. 4 things that you mentioned about successful companies. Many names of the companies were going through my mind, and I found it is applicable, whether Apple or P&G, with things that lasted for so long. تلاقيهم extremely innovative. They have the right governance and the right brand name and people behind it. These are the 4 things. Tarek, you served as a board on here until now, and by the way, I just want to thank you because it's your weekend and you're taking the time with us, and thank you very, very much. And you're working in multiple boards. Sometimes people confusing the board duties versus the executive duties and so on. So can you just give us a bit from your experience, what should be the duties for a board member?
Yeah, I mean, board member sounds like a very sexy title, but there's a wide variety of companies, and the board membership also differs a lot. But I will try to simplify. publicly traded companies are required to have boards. Boards, they do represent the shareholders. So they act for the shareholders and the company's interests. So as a director in a publicly traded company, you don't manage the company. So board members don't manage the day-to-day business. They help management with the strategy. So they work together with management on the long-term strategy of the business. They have to make sure that the company is compliant. So there is audit committees. They have to make sure that there is a good succession plan for the CEO and the senior management. They have to make sure that the compensation is competitive to keep the talent, and the bonuses are in line with the business performance. So they are the voice of the shareholders in the company, but they do not, and I repeat, do not manage the day-to-day of the company. A lot of people think that, yeah, I'm going to join this board and then, roll up their sleeves. So how can I help you? But that's not your role. So some companies are privately owned. They don't have to have a board, but many privately owned, 100% privately owned company would like to have a board to make sure that they have good governance, they have good auditing, and some of them choose to have what they call consultative board. So just to get opinion. So it really depends on the country and the kind of business, but generally speaking, anywhere you go, publicly traded companies are required to have a board, and the board member has a fiduciary responsibility. So he responds to, whether in Europe or the US, to the authorities, the regulators in those places. In Latin America as well, I'm a board member in Brazil. I do respond to the regulators because you protect the company and the shareholders' interests. That's what you should be doing.
Excellent. Very good. طارق، احنا يعني وصلنا لاخر الحلقه. Is there any final things you want to say? Honestly, very rich. حلقه رائعه فيها حاجات رائعه، انا نفسي استفدت منها. في اخر حاجه عايز تقولها للبنات والولاد الصغيرين قبل ما نختم الحلقه؟
I think today the world is more competitive than it was before. There is a big shift towards technology. There is a lot of data that is available. Assumptions and hypotheses are just quickly verified on Google. So you have to be fact-based, and you have to have the capacity to learn. And there is plenty of information around you. You can get any course you want online. You can get any information just with double of clicks. And I think that whoever is not eager to learn and eager to transform this learning into skill will be behind. So learning for me is the big thing.
Very good. Tarek, thank you very, very much. Great session. Alhamdulillah. يعني, and thank you again. I'm عارف إن هو weekend. You take that long time, and I know that you prepare for it. And thank you also for the great idea of doing it together. I think it's more interactive versus, intro and doing it by yourself. It was very useful. Actually, I learned a lot. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and good luck to everyone. And it's an honor, Haytham, that you remembered me and you invited me on this. Thank you so much. Take care and have a good weekend.
Thank you, Tarek. Thanks a lot.
Bye.